I want to talk about novelty and creativity sciences. I have a model of 18 of them, and I've created a school out of that, which is 9 of those 18 creativity and novelty sciences in one 3-week session, which means 2 days cover one of those 9, and another adjacent 2 days covers the second of those 9, and another 2 days covers the third of those 9. And then another 3-week session later in the same year presenting the other 9 creativity and novelty sciences. And you know what these are. These are obvious things like design, creativity, innovation, composing, venture business launch, performing, invention, innovation, all of that stuff. There are 18 of them. The point is several. First of all, uh, right now, if you want to study them all, it takes 6 years and 8, 10 departments in the university to do it because they're scattered. They're not unified. They're not taught together, and they're not researched together. Number two, uh, the creativity and novelty sciences are different ways to bring the new into human affairs. And when you study them individually, it allows you to be vague, expansive, overly general, overly effusive, and sort of repeat the same stuff as if composing is exactly the same as inventing, is exactly the same as venture business launch, which is exactly the same as performing. No, that's not true. And so by studying them together, it forces you to get clear about the different ways, the differences in way of how the new, and then about different newnesses that get into the world, and the different ways those newnesses get into the world. And so it forces a precision of understanding and a set of clear distinctions about the different newnesses that get in the world and the different ways those newnesses get in the world. More than that, number 3, my novel, Creativity and Novelty Sciences School, presents not one model of creativity, not one model of composing, not one model of performing, not one model of how people invent, not one model of how people innovate, but generally 20 to 30 models in the school itself of how people do those things. And so you learn 30 models of how people create, 30 models of how people design, 30 models of how people innovate, 30 models of how people compose, 30 models of how people perform, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is something that no university does at all or even tolerates. And universities are in this giant one-upmanship competitive battle called my model is better than your model. My model is better than yours. And as a result, nobody cooperates with anybody. Nobody builds on anybody else's results. There's a strong incentive to make everybody else look wrong rather than find value in what they do. It's just a sort of male, adolescent, 12-year-old game played by people in 40 and 50 and 60-year-old bodies. And the result is they're extremely few creativity, novelty, invention, discovery, innovation, venture business launch models. Extremely few that have statistically valid variables in them and statistically reliable variables in them, because most people don't have enough time and money to do that research work. There are a few people at Harvard and Stanford and MIT who do, and those models, when applied sincerely, with millions of dollars and several years of effort by top-level competent private sector organizations, produce absolutely nothing. The best model statistically in universities, when applied, publish publicly, where you and I can read it, that they accomplish nothing. In fact, if you read the articles, you have to search fanatically to find the results. Method, 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 approach, 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 assumption, 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 assumption. Where are the results in this article? And finally, the next to last paragraph, some middle sentence is the results, which are vaguely stated because they're zero. Now, I know this because Harvard did a couple of famous studies of Procter Gamble, an organization I know very well and have insider access to, and the results were actually zero. In fact, copying a popular Japanese hot pad product 8 years after it was popular in Japan, and you got that ability, that level of innovativeness you achieved by changing 42 environment variables. Well, if I changed 42 environment variables and it enabled me to copy an old hit product in Japan 8 years later, I should commit myself to an insane asylum, because that is laughably low. I mean, delayed copying of Japan is not innovation in my book. Now, that may be Harvard standards, but it's not Richard Greene standards. And I think it bespeaks the low level of intellectuality at Harvard and the top colleges these days, that people are so into elite method competition. My method is better than your method, that results are totally nowhere. Zero results is fine, or negative inverse results are fine. The important thing is my research method is better than your. They grown faculty at the top colleges in the United States are so adolescent and so individualistic, so antagonistic to learning from each other and building on the work of each other, that only in some very nominal sense is there a community of them at all. Basically, it's an agonal forum of adolescents playing this game of one-upmanship. Now, I wanted this tape to talk about the Novelty and Creativity Sciences School. It turns out that it's very difficult to set up such a school at universities. I'm doing parts of it at KO, but other faculty get envy-filled or competitive or whatever. I'm doing parts of it in China, but that's for a new organization where I don't have to worry about other faculty reaction and envy and all of that stuff. But to do 18 courses on one theme in a coherent package is something colleges are simply not competent at, not aware of, maybe afraid of. And then to make each course present multiple models is something that counteracts this tendency of people in academia to seek one rightish model and insist that my rightish model is rightisher than yours, and then have no impact when competent private sector organizations do thorough application of the model. They get zero, nothing. So we're in that kind of a world, and the Creativity and Knowledge School, in those three ways that I mentioned, is trying to get beyond that. And if I'm lucky and fully establish it in China, if I'm lucky and get parts of it done in Japan, and there are a couple of European universities I met at this TMCE conference this year who are interested in it. One of them gets seriously interested. I think it fits European tradition and culture rather well. Then maybe we can get this thing out and fly.